Okay, so our last section of notes is going to cover mammals. Mammals are part of kingdom Mammalia. They're part of phylum Chordata because, once again, they have backbones, and their class is going to be Mammalia. Uh, in class Mammalia, there's over 5,400 different species, and they make up today's largest land-dwelling vertebrates. And what we know about mammals is they're well adapted for living in land in the various environments on land. There are four key characteristics of mammals. The first of which is going to be hair. Of all the animals, only mammals have hair. And hair is going to be a filament that's composed of dead cells that are filled with a protein known as keratin. It doesn't matter if it's the hair on your head or the wool of the sheep or the hair on the yak. All are going to be composed of those dead skin cells with keratin. This hair serves three different functions for mammals. The first is going to be insulation. It provides insulation for those animals. So whether it is the wolf and the polar bear that live in the Arctic North, or whether it's our otters that live in the water, or animals that live in the desert as well. Insulation is key for being well adapted to living in those environments. The second function of hair is going to be for camouflage. Whether it's predators or prey, the hair allows for camouflage to take place. So whether, for example, our leopard in the top right-hand corner blends in with the grass, and same with the Arctic fox in the bottom right-hand corner. His white hair helps him blend in with the snow. And then we have our zebras with their stripes that allow for them to blend in as a herd. The third function of hair is going to be used for sensory purposes. Whiskers, you'll see a lot of our mammals will have whiskers. Those are hair structures that are going to be located on the very front of the face, and they're used for sensing their surroundings. So you may see your cat or your dog and their whiskers at the end of their snout. Those whiskers are used in order to sense around their face so that a cat or a dog can actually determine whether or not an opening is big enough for them to stick their head through. You also will find hair cells within the ear of our mammals as well. Those hair cells are used for picking up sound waves. They will vibrate back and forth and then transmit those vibrations to your inner ear, where we'll have that translated into sound. The second key characteristic of mammals is diverse and specialized teeth. There's several different types of teeth. However, mammals usually only have two sets of teeth throughout their lifetime. The first is going to be their milk teeth, or what are known as baby teeth. And then we have our permanent teeth that will come in after that. You can see on the right-hand side, there's a baby with their milk teeth poking through. Those are usually the first ones that come through. And then you can see how the jaw and its structure has allowed for the adaptation of these first sets of teeth, which would be right here, and then the permanent teeth that would come in later on in life. These teeth are going to be specialized for the food that the mammals eat. So you'll see a different structure of the tooth depending on whether or not that mammal is going to be a carnivore versus an herbivore. If we look at the types of teeth, mammals have four different types of teeth. The first type is going to be the incisors. The incisors are going to be the teeth that are usually located at the very front of the mouth. They have a narrow edge to them, and they're used for cutting. These teeth are used for, these are the ones that you would use if you're biting into an apple or cutting through your food, and usually will have a sharper edge to them. To the outer edge of both those will be your canine teeth. These canine teeth are going to be located on either side of the incisors, and they're going to be modified for tearing your food. So if you were to bite into a beef jerky stick, or if you were to bite into a steak, these would be actually the teeth that are used for tearing your food. You can see on our lion down here, he has very big canine teeth. Those are those ones on either side. These can also be used by mammals for defense. Next, if we follow the teeth along and going towards the back of the mouth, the next group is going to be the premolars. These are going to be located between the canine teeth and the molars, and they serve as a transitional tooth. They have characteristics for both tearing and grinding. So if you notice in your mouth, you'll actually see that on the outer edge, they have usually sharp points, but then on the inner side, they're usually flat, and that's used for grinding. And then the last section of the mouth will be the molars. These are usually going to be just flatter teeth located in the back of the jaw, and they're used for grinding. So these premolars and molars, if you were to eat, like, let's say, peanuts, these would be the ones that you would use in order to grind or mash those nuts into smaller pieces. If we were to look at the difference between a carnivore and an herbivore and their teeth, you'd see that on carnivores, they usually have longer, sharper, and pointed teeth. Once again, these are used for tearing into their food. So you can see, for instance, our carnivore, our tiger down here has very big, once again, canine teeth. And they use that in order to not only tear at their food, but also to pierce their prey's flesh. Herbivores are going to not need those type of teeth because they chew on plants. So they're going to need usually flatter edge teeth that are used for or are better at biting, crushing, and grinding their food. So you can see, as a human, we would be classified more as an omnivore, and so we have characteristics of both herbivore teeth and carnivore teeth. But you can see, just looking at that picture, the difference between the two main types of animals. Third characteristic of mammals is that they have an endothermic metabolism. This is used, once again, to generate our own body heat and maintain that stable internal temperature that is needed for many of our body systems to function. In order to maintain this, we must continue to fill up with food. And so what you'll see is that mammals will need to eat more than your reptiles that were ectothermic or had ectothermic metabolism. In order to maintain that internal temperature, we must give the body its fuel in order to do so. So I thought this picture was pretty cool. This is a picture showing the difference between an endothermic and ectothermic animal. So you have the human, who is endothermic, holding the lizard in this case, who is going to be ectothermic. And so you can see there's almost a 10 to 15 degree difference between the body temperatures of the two organisms in this picture. Fourth key characteristic of mammals is going to be the mammary glands. This is actually where we get the name mammal from. These mammary glands are going to be used in order to produce milk for their young. Females are going to be the ones that are able to produce the milk, and while males still have the mammary glands, they do not and cannot make milk. So what you'll find is that with this adaptation of making food for their young, mammalian mothers will nourish their young until a stage known as weaning. This is the time period in which the mother stops nursing the child and usually transitions them to eating solid foods. This takes place for other mammals, but for humans, it's usually about the 6-month period here in the United States. We usually wait until the 6-month period due to the fact that we don't want babies to become allergic and allow for their bodies to actually develop their allergy resistance mechanisms. In third world countries, because there's not as enough food available for all, third world countries, this weaning stage usually takes or tends to be longer. You can see in Kenya, it's usually 22 months. Rwanda, it's up to 28 months. And this is due to the fact that these countries don't necessarily have the resources we have here in the United States. And thus, as long as the mother's producing basically free food for the child, they're going to continue to feed their child that way. Along with the parental care, you'll find that mammals will actually go through a gestation period. This is going to be a period of time where the embryo or the fetus develops inside the animal. And so from our zygote all the way up to the fetus developing, this will be known as the gestation period. And so you can see down in the pictures below, that would be human fetus developing from our first week all the way up to the 38th week. For humans, this period tends to be around 40 weeks. Elephants, you can see there, it's 95 weeks. So your elephant is usually going to be pregnant for close to 2 years before giving birth. And then your mice and your rodents are going to be a lot shorter time period. It's only 3 weeks. And that's why you may see like bunnies or rodents or mice when they have their babies. Those babies will develop very quickly and then once again have more babies. When we look at the respiration system of mammals, their lungs are actually more adapted to living on land than our reptiles and our amphibians. And there's two key characteristics for that, or that show that. The first is going to be our alveoli. These are going to be small chambers that are located on the terminal ends inside our lungs. And they provide a very large surface for oxygen to diffuse into the bloodstream. Here's a closer picture of the alveoli. You can see the oxygen and carbon dioxide will be able to diffuse in and out of the bloodstream at these terminal buds. And so it almost looks like a grape cluster, but those alveoli are what will allow for this efficient diffusion and movement of oxygen into the bloodstream. This is what allows for us to have very extensive amounts of energy because we can get that oxygen to our muscle pretty quickly. So you can see our cheetahs, this is what allows for them to run in short bursts up to 75 miles per hour and also allows for a whale to hold its breath and be underwater for close to 90 minutes. Along with the alveoli, we also have a muscle known as the diaphragm. The diaphragm is going to extend at the bottom of the thoracic cavity. It's going to extend across that cavity. And this muscle, as it contracts, what's going to happen is it's going to increase the volume of the thoracic cavity and thus drawing more air into the lungs. So as it contracts and it flexes, it's going to draw more air into the lungs. As it relaxes, it then pushes the air out of the lungs. If we look at the circulatory system of our mammals, they have a 4-chambered heart. This is very similar to what we found with our birds. So there's no mixture of the blood, which is very efficient. It makes it better than the amphibian and reptile heart. And thus it completely divides our oxygen-rich blood from our oxygen-poor blood. This, once again, only allows for oxygen-rich blood to go through from the lungs to the muscles, and then only allows for oxygen-poor blood to return from the muscles back to the heart, where it then gets pumped back to the lungs to become oxygenated. I thought this was pretty cool. The blue whale actually has the biggest heart here on Earth. It measures about 5 feet tall by 4 feet wide and 5 feet long, and weighs over 1,000 pounds. So next time you go driving down the road and you pass one of our cows here in Rose Hill, you can just picture that cow, and that is how much the heart of a blue whale weighs. You can see down in the right-hand picture, those openings of the heart are big enough for people to actually fit their way through and climb into the chambers. Now we're going to look at some of the orders of mammals. There's 2 orders that do not classify as being placental mammals. The first one is going to be monotremata. Mono means one, and in this case, tremata, we're talking about our one-hold mammals. And so what you'll find with this is they're actually going to be our platypus and our echidnas. They're going to be our mammals that will actually lay eggs. The other order is going to be our marsupials, or our pouched mammals. This will be our kangaroos, our wallabies, our possums, koalas, and our wombats. And what you'll find is that the actual fetus will develop inside this pouch rather than inside a placenta. So our placental mammals, they are named this because of the fact that they have a placenta. This placenta is going to be found in the female mammal. It's an organ that helps aid in providing nutrients to the baby as it develops in the womb. What the placenta allows for is it allows for transfer of nutrients between the mother and the baby. And so what will happen is this is how the baby will get its oxygen supply. This is also how the waste that the baby produced gets removed from the actual womb. And so it carries the waste such as carbon dioxide and fecal matter out of that environment, and it provides oxygen into the environment. Of our placental mammals, we have several different orders. The first order is going to be Rodentia. This is going to be our 9 mammals. So these will be your rodents. That's where we get the name rodents from. This would be your mice. This would be your rats. And I put the beaver on there because it's probably the most common for 9. This is your largest order. There's going to be over 1,700 different species of Rodentia. Next is going to be carnivora. This is our meat eaters. This includes both our canines and our felines, so our dogs and our cats, and would be mostly our household pets. The next order is going to be our primates. This is monkeys and humans. They are known as primates because of their larger brain or more developed brain and their ability to use tools. The next after that is going to be Perissodactyla. That's going to be our horses and our rhinoceroses. This is going to be our odd-toed hoofed animals. This is not your cows. Your cows are actually, and your goats are all going to be even-toed hoofed animals, which are going to be part of a different order. And the last order is going to be Cetacea. This is going to be all of our whales and porpoises. These are going to be our toothed whales that are going to be located living in the ocean water. Okay, so that's our notes for today.